Hi everybody, this is Baarda with Farming Smarter. I'm here as part of our field tested program. We have an on-farm trial looking at using a planter for precision canola. So this is something we've been working on for the last couple of years. So this site is southern Alberta down close to Stirling. It's a rain-fed site. And the trial itself, we have 4 different treatments. We're looking at an air drill at a high and low rate. So 320 and 160 seeds per acre, or about 2 and 4 pounds per acre. And then a planter on 15-inch rows, which is a little tighter than what the 20 or 30s you might see for corn, or 22s, on the same rates. So 2-4 pounds per acre, or 160 and 320. So right now, I'm standing in the planter at that higher rate, so about 320 seeds per acre. And you can see we've got pretty good emergence, pretty uniform emergence. Our seed spacing is quite uniform. Although I am seeing, we do have a few places where we've got a couple seeds in a row here, a couple plants that are a little earlier stage. So I wouldn't say it's perfect, but as we look down the rows, we can see those rows clearly. Everything's in the row. Everything's pretty uniform stage-wise. So I suspect what we're seeing a little bit here is just some issues with navigating the stubble, or maybe sort of that zero-till seeding piece that the planter's maybe not quite fully adapted for it. But all in all, on this higher rate, I'd say I'm pretty happy with how things look. So maybe I'll step over, and in this adjacent plot here, we have the planter on 15-inch rows, and this is half the seed rate of that last plot. So now we're down to 160 seeds per acre, about roughly 4 pounds per acre if you're thinking in those terms. And it's just not looking quite as healthy. But again, we've got our staging. Let's see, we'll look here. Staging is pretty uniform here. Our spacing is a little further apart, although again, not quite perfect. We should be seeing things at about, I think, a little bit over 2 inches apart. So we've got a big gap here, we've got a couple close here, but for the most part, pretty happy with the placement, pretty happy with the staging. As we walk through the plot, there are patches where things aren't looking as good as others, and I think, again, it's sort of that, a little work maybe needs to be done on sort of managing, residue management, and sort of that zero-till environment. So yeah, not a lot of rain on this site. We're going to walk over to the air seeder plots. Not a lot of rain. We had about an inch and a half of rain maybe a few weeks ago, but nothing since. So things are actually getting pretty dry here. So now I've got, this is the air seeder. Here, let's go right here. This is kind of a good spot. So the air seeder on the low seed rate, and so emergence, I mean, we've done counts. I don't have the numbers here, but it looks pretty similar to what we saw with the planter. But you kind of look at the variability here. So we've got some small ones, we've got some big ones, we've got a big gap, we've got a couple of big plants. Here's a spot right here, if you can see, where we have quite a big cluster of plants, some bigger, some smaller. And then adjacent to that with the air seeder, we've got just one little cotyledon in there. So we really see, that's one of the advantages the planter brings, is sort of that uniformity. And when the soil conditions are ideal and the machine is sort of handling the residue and the soil well, that's really the real advantage. But I think that's been a little bit muted on this site with a little more residue and maybe not ideal soil conditions. So we'll walk over to one more plot. And take a look at the air drill on a high seed rate. So that's 320 seeds per acre. And we're calling this our high rate. Really, it's probably a typical rate. And this actually looks really good. So we've got, again, fairly uniform, pretty good stand. If we look down the rows, we can see quite a bit of green popping up. So one of the things that I'm noticing with the air seeder is it causes a little more disturbance than the planter. And we get some of these, you can see the ridges here, the ridges between the seed rows. In sort of a moisture limiting environment, you wonder about, how that might help the plant as opposed to sort of less disturbance for the planter. It creates, you know, a little bit of protection. Maybe you're able to seed this, plant the seed shallow, but still closer to moisture at seeding. So maybe there's an advantage there. So yeah, so a couple of things to keep an eye on through the season. I expect that if we get a little bit of rain and we come back in 2 weeks, it's going to start to be really tough to see the difference, you know, sort of plant by plant size. We'll certainly see a bit of a difference in row spacing. So yeah, kind of fun to come out and see what's happening out here on the farm. And yeah, stay tuned. We'll continue to update this project every few weeks or so throughout the summer. So yeah, thanks for tuning in.